Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Halftime with K. Bizzy. We are getting close, super close to the 70th episode of the podcast, and I just can't help but thank you guys every chance I get to show my appreciation and love for the support you guys give me, whether it's on YouTube, if it's on Apple Podcasts, if it's on Spotify. You guys watching the podcast, I see it all, and I appreciate each and every one of you that do support the podcast. Today we have Jared Habib, a returning guest, joining us, and he is obviously the owner of the Copenhagen Wolves, and he is the newest member of Take Flyte. I was lucky enough to meet up with Jared at the Austin Major, and he's just a great dude, man. He's just a great dude. He's got his eye on the prize. He's the owner of an organization. He's the player of another organization. I mean, the guy, he's a top lad, straight up and down. So yeah, today we're pretty much just catching up with each other since the fourth episode when we first had Jared on, which has been a long time away from now. It's, I mean, getting close to 2 years. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, we're just kind of catching up, and there's been a lot of roster changes on the Copenhagen Wolves. He joined a new team, so there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in this short 2-year span. I guess kind of not really that short, depending on how you look at it, I guess. But we're going to jump right into things. If you guys want to support the channel further, make sure you're liking the video, making sure that you are subscribing to the channel, and always drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode, what I'm not doing, what I could be doing better. I'm always open to hear stuff like that. So yeah, enjoy the episode, guys. We'll catch you on the outro. Hey,
Yo,
how's it going, man?
it's going good, bro.
Hell yeah. Everything going good since we last talked? It's been a minute.
I know, yeah, everything's good.
Yeah, right on, right
No
on.
complaints right now.
So it's been a minute. We had you on the podcast. It was actually a year and a half ago. I'm just looking now in my notes. That was episode 4, and now this will be coming out for episode 66. So it's been quite some time, and I appreciate you again pulling up and lending me some of your time. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate that a ton. I know the Wolves have been grinding and playing some great Counter-Strike lately. You guys had a pretty successful day yesterday. There's been some roster changes and stuff like that. But overall, like, with everything that's happened in the past year and a half since we last talked, like, how's everything going?
Everything's good. There's been a few roster changes within the team, but right now we're kind of in like a place where we think that with the new kind of addition that we're bringing in and stuff like that, that we are in a good spot to kind of take another step forward. We had a couple good games yesterday. I thought the second game was super winnable, but unfortunately it didn't go our way. But taking 2 out of 3 isn't too bad, and I got the boys coming to Philadelphia next week, so we'll be very excited for that. And everything's been going good. We've been able to grow our social media. We have a great sponsor in Skin Rave, so for the team, I think we're in a pretty good place right now.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. And, like, I don't know. I try to catch as many games as I can. Usually I'm working, which is the bad part. But whenever I get to watch the games, it's just, it's so entertaining. So entertaining.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And, we got to meet up at the Austin Major, which I was super stoked
Yeah,
about.
that was awesome.
Yeah, man. And there's just so many people from the Twitter community and people from the podcast that I've had on before, and it was super cool to meet you and so many others. But I wanted to hear from you, like, how was the Austin event for you? It was a fucking incredible show.
Oh, I love to see the show. I thought it was really cool. I thought the matches were great, and I really enjoyed that whole experience. Got to be there with some good people. Obviously, met a lot of friends such as yourself, and including got to go with a couple of friends. Um, so that was just a really great experience for me. Um, and then I just think the entire event is just a cool experience to be a part of. Who doesn't love that? It's a packed crowd, super amped up, and just like super excited about Counter-Strike. So for me, that's a great place to be.
Yeah, definitely. And so many people say too, like, oh, it's the biggest meme. NA Counter Strike is dead and stuff like that. Dude, that arena was jumping. Like, I hope this opens up some eyes and we get some more majors in NA anywhere, really. Like, I'll go anywhere in NA to go see a major like that. That was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think that NA doesn't have the I think there's definitely the support and or I should say there's definitely the number of people that we need to really be like a striving scene. There's definitely a lot of people, you know, buying into the game. Um, but something my current teammate tweeted the other day, Crispy, he said there's not a lot of real role models in the scene. Where in Europe, I feel like there's a lot of people who you can kind of like look up to who are really doing a lot of good things and are being really successful and stuff like that. But in NA, I really don't think there's a lot of like there's not really a lot of role models and stuff like that to really help the NA scene. But um, I don't think it's due to a lack of people wanting to. I think there's definitely a good amount of people that really want to make this their goal and their dream. So hopefully we can take steps to really grow as a community because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this before on the show. Like when I went to the Copenhagen major, I got to the airport and I was going to, get through all the checkpoints and stuff and pick up my luggage. And there's a Bitskins ad for Counter Strike for the Prince Stream Lamborghini. I was like, what the fuck? Like it really put it
Yeah,
into perspective how big it was there. And I got to talk to I went up to the checkpoint where the security was checking me through, and she's like, what are you doing here and everything? Like, what's your business? And I was like, oh, I'm going to some gaming tournament. I don't know, you probably wouldn't understand. It's some nerd thing, just a professional gaming tournament, whatever. And she's like, oh, Counter Strike? Like, oh, my kids are going to that. And I'm like, dude, like, we need this kind of, attention in NA.
yep.
Like, that would be insane. And I think that we could get it one day if we keep it up how we're keeping up now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so as well. I think they have a lot of it's a lot more of a accepted thing there to be a professional esports athlete. I think that when you are somebody who has a support system, such as like they have different schools that you can go to. I mean, I think when we talked last time, it may have been like the old roster, right? And when we had like Basso and Vigo and those guys, like Basso taught at a school teaching kids, how to play Counter Strike and stuff like that. It's like a boarding school for it. Yeah, in America, you don't kind of get anything like that. But and nor would it really be accepted for gaming to be like your 9 to 5 job, so to speak. But in Europe, I think it's accepted. People are taken out of school for it, and parents are kind of maybe a little bit more willing to let them kind of chase that dream. But I think it's definitely a little bit of an easier environment due to the amount of tournaments, the amount of support that there is, the amount of opportunity, and say organizations that are willing to take chances in Europe as well, compared to NA, which definitely kind of hurts us. But um, you know, any way that we can kind of grow the scene and grow the amount of tournaments and stuff like that we have here is definitely something that we can do to really help. But it's definitely something that's a lot more widely kind of accepted in Europe as like a true profession, versus NA.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one day we'll get there. We'll get there with time, I think. This episode of Halftime with K Bizzy is brought to you in part by PriceEmpire.com. PriceEmpire.com is absolutely loaded with essential tools for any skin enthusiast. Whether it be their blog, their price comparison app, the trending deals, or your personal inventory tracker, I mean, Price Empire really has it all. PriceEmpire.com is trusted by more than 1 million users on Trustpilot to ensure everybody that it is a fair and legit website. PriceEmpire.com is linked in the description. Go step your skins game up today. So I wanted to kind of circle back to the Wolves for a little bit here. Since the last time you were on, like we were saying earlier at the beginning of this, there have been some roster changes, and the games that I've watched, like I was saying, incredibly fun to watch, and I can really see like the improvement and what you guys are building towards. I can see it in the games that you guys are playing. I wanted to know a little bit more of like how things are going internally and the new roster changes that have been happening. Like, are the newer players kind of meshing together well? Like, do you see stuff as the owner of the team? Do you see stuff forming pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the relationships that we have as a team is great, especially with like the coaching staff and with the players. But it, Jake and I, my brother who owns Wolves with me, we're very like in tune with the team. We're very good friends with everybody. We're very much so like a part of it. So more so than ever, do we really feel like we've built like a family environment that can grow together. Like just yesterday we were playing PUBG together with some of the guys. So like we try and have a really good environment with everybody, and we hope that team building and team bonding is something that really can help elevate us to another level. Obviously, some of the changes and stuff like that were kind of out of our control with some of the stuff that happened, but um, right now we feel like we're at a really good spot, and I honestly think that we have more firepower than ever.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of improvements, and there's been some ups and downs, for the Wolves, and that's a common thing. Every team goes through ups and downs. I mean, I'm a FaZe fanboy, so we could get started talking about that, but we'd be here all
Of
day long.
course.
But it's the strong moments that I think that really kind of highlight everything that's going on. And I was kind of wondering if you'd be able to talk a little bit about when you guys do go on a little bit of a downward spiral and then you do eventually go back up, like what kind of changes do you make, or like internally, like what goes on to get back on the swing of things and start winning a bunch of matches?
I think like the one of the main things is you got to make sure the players are self-critical of one another. I mean, like if they have to be of like themselves, I should say. I mean, like they need to be able to look at one of their own demos and really critique themselves. So, and then also I think a big key is like you got to make sure that you're prepared. You know, you can't just rely on say the coaching staff to uh, do just the obviously them are going to do the anti strat and the game planning and stuff like that. But it's still important for the players to be prepared. Make sure they're doing their due diligence to kind of watch the player that they're opposing. Also, is making sure that they kind of it's kind of something that's maybe some people don't buy into, but I think it's important. You got to make sure that like you're um, eating at the right time as well, eating the right foods is a big reason why professional athletes, like say golfers, for example, they don't eat any carbohydrates while they're playing golf or something like that, or like just like say 10, 15 minutes before, because it can also mess with the way that you play. It can make you more tired faster, make you more sluggish. So, I think anything you can do to kind of just make sure you're at your kind of peak state, and also just make sure that you're going in prepared and have the right preparation. Then, of course, there's always going to be conversations about roles or something like that in case anybody is uncomfortable in any positions. But I think more so than not, I think sometimes players they can kind of get into different periods where they are maybe lacking a little bit of confidence, especially if you go on a little bit of a loss streak. But I think the way to really turn that is just to rely on what you're strong at, and what they're strong at is like their fundamentals, and how they are as a player. So how do you rely on that? You just want to make sure you're prepared, make sure that you're feeling strong individually, make sure that you're feeling good, individually as well as like a not only in the server but also outside of the server, and that kind of allows you to reset. And once you can rely on the preparation, the fundamentals already take over because they're all already supernaturally gifted in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that really amazes me is just like really how much goes into, you know, let alone being an org owner, but specifically just being a player is just like I don't know the full extent, I'm just the outsider looking in, but from the people that I've talked to in the pro scene and people like yourself, there's so much that goes into it, like boot camping and playing face-its and pugging and practice and strat calling, demo reviews, and like it's really crazy how much goes into it. And then some teams have mental coaches, or like you were just saying, having a good healthy diet and stuff like that. Like there's really so many angles to it. It really just amazes me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And outside of the Wolves, I wanted to talk a little bit more about you and your personal life and your personal career. Midway through August, you and your ex-teammate DJ both stepped down from Mite's roster, and just days after, Mite announced that actually they're going to be disbanding due to not having a core for the VRS anymore. I was wondering if you kind of wanted to talk about that whole situation and maybe why you decided to leave and continue your journey elsewhere if you wanted to. If you don't want to, I totally get it.
I mean, I'll go into a little bit. I mean, all those guys were like I'm still friendly with. They're all great people, and um, I think I'll see DJ at Blocktober, so I'll look forward to kind of saying hello and stuff like that. But I think the team just we felt like we were kind of at like a I don't want to use the word stalemate, but it kind of felt like we were just kind of in like a lull where maybe the type of players that we had and the type of system that we had, I don't necessarily think that they meshed super well. And for me, I was just in a really period of like feeling very unconfident in myself and myself individually as a player. So I just kind of felt like it was time for a change. and also like I didn't have like the love for playing at that moment in time. So I wanted to step down and kind of take a break. And I think DJ going to lag, I wasn't something I necessarily expected to happen afterwards. I kind of thought that they were just going to replace me, but I mean, for him, it kind of worked out pretty nicely for him. He got onto a really good team, so um, I'm really happy for him and stuff like that. And then I don't think it was because the other guys wanted to necessarily separate, but I just don't think Seb was a part of the VRS core like just yet. I think you need to play like 10 games or something like that. So he wasn't a part of the core just yet. And because of that, I think they kind of ultimately were on like kind of like one foot out the door. But also I think Beanox may have like another squad lined up or something like that. I think Seb also just joined the team. But I think he may have another squad lined up. So I'm not really sure exactly anything. So it wasn't necessarily something that wasn't like, I think everybody kind of had the feeling it was kind of like that time, regardless of something, like something was going to give eventually, like so some change was needed.
Hmm.
But I think I was just kind of like the first to kind of rip the band-aid off. But I mean, you see kind of like the way it kind of happened after, like it's not like everybody was like, it's not like we had like everybody's like friends with each other. We still like we play different games all the time. It's just I think eventually which when we spend so much time together, I think just like you can kind of just feel when a change is kind of needed. And if you kind of can understand what I'm trying to say, I feel like sometimes it's just time to make that change where you feel like you've gotten far, but you feel like you're struggling to kind of take the next step. And I kind of feel like that's where we were at. So for me, I just kind of wanted to see if I can get a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and it's probably the worst feeling in the world I could imagine. Just it's kind of like maybe an elephant in the room almost, and it's like, okay, something's not working here, and nothing's getting fixed. So it's just like something's got to give, like you were saying.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the bright side, just days after you announced that you'd be stepping away from Might, you were signed to take Flyte, which must have felt pretty amazing. I'm sure maybe you probably had something lined up for that, unless it was completely
No,
random.
completely random.
Wow.
When I left my, I had no intention of going to take flight or any other team. Basically, I was just somebody who was just going to look for a team and was going to be ready to do tryouts for whoever else. Like I obviously knew some of the take flight guys. They're all obviously Saban and Nello, of course. I always saw them at all the events, and I've talked to them beforehand. A lot of the players I've kind of just like more or less said hello to, stuff like that. But a couple of days after, or maybe a day after, something like that, I had made the looking for team post. Nello and Zabe, and also our coach Rando, had reached out to me saying they wanted me to try out with the guys. And kind of immediately after, we kind of just connected really well. And thankfully now I'm super fortunate to be a part of this organization with those guys. They're all fantastic guys. All the teammates are great. We have just a great time playing, and that's really kind of given me a love for the super enjoyable to come to practice and super enjoyable to play in these games with the hype and everything that comes along with the team. And for me, that's super exciting. So I'm super happy about that. And I'm super happy to be here. But yeah, there was no prerequisite to it. It was just right after I made the post, they hit me up saying, "Hey, we'd love to try out." So then I ended up trying out, and fortunately for me, everything went well. And long story short, here we are.
Yeah, that's perfect. And to have it come like completely random like that, like talk about perfect timing, that must have been pretty sweet.
Yeah,
And like the transition into the team, like it felt pretty organic and like things are going good
yeah. I mean, the
overall.
transition was was really nice, and like for me, it allowed me to kind of step into a more vocal role and vocal position, and also more of like a supportive position, which like for me, like the more I played, the more I actually kind of like enjoyed doing. Not that like I think maybe I'm a little bit of a anomaly in that regard because I don't think a lot of people typically enjoy doing that, but so it's something for me which I like to do and I have no problem doing, just to set up my team, because in reality all I want to do is just win, so I'm willing to do whatever I need to help the team win. And um We have a bunch of great players, so I'm looking to get them, activated and get them really going, and then hopefully, I can close it out in some of those clutch situations and stuff like that later in the round. But everything has felt good. The team has gelled really well, and we all have a great relationship.
Hell yeah, man. Love to hear it. And there's one thing I've been really curious about too. You know, being an org owner and, obviously owning the Copenhagen Wolves, you overlook everything and you're also a player on a completely separate note. With being the guy that, I'm sure you're probably looking over demos and, stuff like that with the Wolves, and with all the everything that goes into bettering a team and helping come up with solutions when needed and stuff like that. When you're in your own regard and you're obviously on a team and you're your own player as well outside of the Wolves, do you think that kind of helps you further kind of understand how maybe you and your team that you're playing on, how you guys should be
Well,
playing?
so for me, I'm not necessarily like I'm more so like we have like an internal stream where like I'll listen to the comms and stuff like that of the games. So that definitely helps to hear how they communicate and everything like that. But I'm not like super in tune with like all of their strats and everything like that. But I'll definitely pick their brain to talk about how they like to approach a map. Or if I'm struggling somewhere, I'll ask them like for some ideas on some like defaults or set rounds or whatever it may be, just to kind of like help aid me further. But I've definitely asked them for advice. I do it frequently, but of course, like just by watching them, I'm able to kind of pick out certain things that I really like to see. And also, I can see some of the types of people who play the positions that I do, how they're kind of communicating, how they're supporting, how they're handling certain situations. And that definitely helps me. So I'm definitely more so kind of picking their brain, but I'm not giving too much like input on the team tactically or anything like that. That's for the IGL and coaching staff and the players to kind of handle. Um, More so, I'll just give my opinion if I see something that's maybe that I think is like super necessary to bring up, but it's not something that I'm super oftenly kind of doing that. I'm more so kind of absorbing their knowledge versus kind of like critiquing or anything like that. We just try and be a good support system for them, provide them with the tools they need, keep them motivated, keep them excited, and keep them kind of confident. But aside from that, it's more that I'm absorbing the knowledge from them.
I love it, man. I love it. And I've always like I kind of relate back to skateboarding because outside of Counter Strike, the only thing I've ever really been a part of is skateboarding and stuff like that. And I just think it's super awesome to have, like, from the player's perspective, to have the boss being you, a guy who actually plays the game and is on a team and is out there grinding, alongside them. And it's not just some random guy that maybe doesn't even care about playing Counter Strike. And I don't know. There's some owners for skateboard companies that they don't know shit about skateboarding, and they buy out a company or buy out a distribution company that owns a certain brand, and they just start making all these changes, and then you see the brand go under, and it's just like, why would you do any of that? And you just ruined something that was so beautiful. But it's the complete opposite with like what you've got going on. I just think that's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's important to like understand the industry that you're in. I mean, there's a lot of great ownership and stuff like that. But I think it's a little bit different because like maybe the owner may be there for like the financial stake in the esports a lot of the times, but when you're talking about these massive organizations, they have just a huge staff and stuff like that where for them to necessarily they don't necessarily need to be making those day-to-day decisions because you have so many people that are so in tune with the game. So from like a managerial standpoint and also a tactical standpoint and just like a brand standpoint, when they're these massive organizations, thankfully they have all these people to kind of do that. But yeah, if you're running like kind of like a smaller organization and you don't really have, or smaller business, but you don't have too much of like an understanding of it, I think it definitely hurts you because it's important to understand like what the players need, what tools they need at their disposal, how they kind of need to be treated, what how they like to be. Then you can kind of get to know them at a uh deeper level. Like how do they like to be critiqued? How do they like to be kind of spoken to? that kind of stuff. Especially when you hear kind of stories about like upper management and ownership, and maybe some organizations kind of being a little bit more um, hands off. Jake and I are kind of the opposite approach. We want to be hands on and make sure that we are um, as good to them as possible, and also being that we have Counter Strike knowledge of our own that definitely kind of aids in the process for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I wanted to ask you as well, going back to the whole NA scene overall, since you're the owner of an organization and a player as well, we've seen things recently like Complexity go under, which is a huge like it's so damaging to NA. Like that's a huge deal. And Liquid just recently made, I think today they just announced that Liquid is leaving and going to be subbing in for FaZe, and Elige is now officially benched on FaZe and going to Liquid. But I mean, you look at Complexity, who's just gone under, and that's a huge damage. And then you look at Liquid, and recently, I mean, it's just such a shame. I don't know what's going on over there. Excuse me, but like these are some of the last teams that we have in NA in Tier One that are representing for the region. I just wanted to kind of get your take on like what you think might be going on, and just what you think of the situation overall.
I personally think it's just from a financial standpoint. I think that being in esports is really expensive and it's hard to have longevity. Now I can't say for sure because I have no idea the salaries or anything like that the players are getting paid, nor do I know the sponsorships that Complexity has. But Complexity is a big organization with probably a large staff, and I can imagine that the costs are just super abundant, and that's why I feel like if you were able to have more tournaments in North America, it would definitely aid in the process. I mean, when CCT and Thunderpick come around, I'm very grateful for those tournaments, but the sad reality is Europe is getting 20 of them while America is getting two, three, four, or something like that. So, you're talking about now 5 or 6 times the amount of tournaments that they are getting comparatively to us. It makes it very hard for you to um, grow as a scene. There's not as many HLTV games. There's not a lot of stuff to really impact the scene. So it's going to be actually like in the public view. Most people don't actually have the ability to get an HLTV, play HLTV officials, get VRS, etc., outside of say Fragadelphia's or maybe the Dust 2 Open qualifier, right? But you then have two tournaments that you can get into, but then you have CCT, Thunderpick, etc. ECL obviously is ranked, but how do you get to those tournaments? So there's no tournaments for people to play or get into. There's very limited open qualifiers, and because of that, I really think there's very little org and brand support. Because what's the incentive? Like, why would people want to? Why would you think people would want to stick around? Because where are you gonna get any return? Because at the end of the day, of course, it's about supporting the scene and making it better, and that's why kind of Jake and I do what we do. But for a lot of these big companies and big investors, where is the incentive for them, especially in America? At least in Europe, you have, like the Wolves guys, we were in like 4 tournaments at once, like this past week, like there's that. And now you're lucky if you're in 4 tournaments in 3 months in America, and I
Hmm.
really think that's like the big difference. And I think all of that is a big reason why teams like Complexity and a lot of even European teams, though, unfortunately, are kind of leaving the scene because it's I can only imagine if you don't have VRS core, like, it has to be a nightmare. Like, it has to be a nightmare because you need to play like 10 games or something like that to get ranked. But in America, where are you going to play 10 games?
Yeah.
You want to go to Fragadelphia? Well, you got to play against Fnatic and Big, and of course, like you got the Wolves, Nines. You got to play against those teams. Imagine now you're a North American team. Like, take Sportsbet Expert. They're a great team. They are a great team. They haven't been able to play the Dust 2 quality, but I'm sure they'll qualify for it. But there's 2 more left, and they've had schedule problems, I think, because they haven't played them. And then they're going to Fragadelphia, but oh, great, I'm going to Fragadelphia. In order to play 10 games, you're going to have to make like the finals. So they may not even be VRS ranked after that. then they got to play Dust 2 quali. If they make that, then they got to play the event. And then they're finally going to get ranked on VRS. It takes you so long to actually get on VRS that it's going to take you even longer to get to a point where you're relevant enough to be invited to these events. So it's a really hard process. And I can imagine in Europe, especially, where it's hard to even get on the VRS ranking at all and get 10 VRS games. It's really, really, really hard without putting in serious investment to go to lands and stuff like that. So I think that's really the big issue with the scene right now. And I think the biggest issue in NA is it's super expensive to travel anywhere, and there's just not enough tournaments or games to be played.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and I think about think of 5 years, 10 years time, maybe 5 to 10 years. Do you think doors will start opening up and there's going to be more opportunity? Or do you think it's going to be kind of where we're at right now, where it's just kind of like a really tough spot, or do you think it'll die out? Like, what do you think about that? I think about that all the time.
I mean, I think that the support will grow, and I think more tournaments will end up happening. I mean, I already do think in the last year and a half, more tournaments have started showing up, and there's going to be more competitors to maybe frag. There's going to be more frag events, and I think with Dust 2 coming up and then doing multiple tournaments as well with open qualifiers, with 4 open qualifier spots. I think that's good. I think the prize pick tournament is good. The only issue with that is because it's such a small tournament, whenever you get into it, you got to play like wild card or something like that for one of these advanced teams who then makes HLTV. They get a tough opponent, but the real thing is, I don't know that I think people are more than ever really trying to kind of save the scene, but the problem is I just don't think that people give us a good representation and a good image. I think there's a lot of bad characters, a lot of bad people, like bad role models, I should say.
Okay.
It's like one of the reasons I just refuse to play FPL. Like it's just I don't think that it would be an enjoyable experience. From everybody I've talked to said it's a miserable experience because where is the support system? It's an unenjoyable game because people are toxic. People are not going to be happy you're in there. They're just going to just knock you down. It's like, where is the enjoyment in doing that? And I've heard stuff from previous admins of tournaments, stuff like that, where people disrespect the admins, not showing up to games in North America, and it actually pissed off some of the tournament organizers, so they would rather not do stuff here because of the reputation
Oh,
that
wow.
some of these people gave us. And it's like a huge tournament organizer, so part of the reason why they do less. There was one example where somebody said that they would rather go to a party than play, and they said that to the
Oh
admin,
my
and they
god.
so and then that reached a higher level where they just don't want to participate. Why would they want to support the region then? If you're
Yeah.
just doing stuff like that, you finally get a tournament here, and then you're gonna do stuff like that. Why accept the invite? And it kind of makes them more less inclined to want to do stuff here. And I think that's when I say there's a lot of bad role models, bad characters, because you can't be doing stuff like that and then expect more of a more stuff in the scene. So um I think the biggest thing though is you need some positive influences and some good people to actually really support the younger people. And I think that the more tournaments that we can have is really going to bring brand incentives. So I really hope that we can get more HLTV coverage, more tournaments, and you're really going to increase the exposure of NA, in my opinion. But I think there's too much of well, they may not be a unified community in North America, but I do think it's unified in the belief that they all want North America to be on the map. So I'm hoping that people will step up in that regard, and we can get some more recognition here, and then hopefully we can get some more tournaments. And I think if that happens, you can really see a big increase in people participating, and maybe some more organizations as well.
I just can't believe what you just said about that. Whoever was saying that to the admin and stuff, it's those kind of people that probably are going, "Oh man, I wish there was more tournaments in NA to watch or go to. I wish there was more tournaments to play in if you're on a team." And then you just say some stupid shit like that,
Yeah.
what are you getting out of that? You're just
Yep.
damaging things. What a shame, man. What a shame.
Yeah.
But what do you have planned for the future? You know, anything you're looking to achieve within Take Flight in your career as a player? Maybe some goals for the Wolves, maybe some goals that they
I mean,
have for the team. What do you got going on for the future?
well, I can tell you quite easily for the Wolves. The goal is that obviously this major with the cutoff or something like that, it's kind of it's impossible. But we're hoping for a really good showing at Frag. We have a little bit of a tough draw. We got to play if we win our first game, we got to play Liquid, but a little bit of a tough draw. But I'm hoping for a competitive showing and getting the boys off on like a strong start. And if we can get a good showing in playoffs, make a little bit of a run, I think we can gain some serious VRS. Then we have some good tournaments like CCT, Galaxy Battle, ECL, and stuff like that in Europe. But you know, I gotta understand it's like a patience thing. You know, we have good opportunity with Frag and stuff like that where we can gain some VRS as long as we perform like we know we can. And from there, I think that'll put us in a good position to get. We're already getting consistent invites, but getting us better seeding at some of these events too. So we're not always playing the strongest seeds and everything like that, which I think is a tough barrier to kind of breach. And then, of course, the goal is the major next year. So hopefully that we can take some steps towards that and be really strong there. And then on the Take Flight kind of side of things, I think that we are in a good position. We're getting ECL invites. We're going to go to the Frag Mega Jersey, which would be cool because that's it. I live in New Jersey, so that'd be great. So we're going to try and have some strong showing, really kind of get ourselves up in the VRS rankings. And I think that the ECL teams and stuff like that, I think there's probably 5, 6 really strong teams. And then I think it's kind of anybody's game to kind of claim those, like, say, like next few spots. And I also think that some of those teams are um, teams that we are capable of getting to the level of. So if that's kind of our goal, we're going to really try and play these teams strong, have good performances at LAN. Especially Frag Jersey, I think we could have a couple good performances. We have a good performance there, and have a couple good games, and get us into playoffs and potentially a playoffs run. I really believe that. So we're super excited about that, and honestly, really excited just kind of about the future with the amount of tournaments and games that we're going to be having, and we just hope that we can keep on this upward trajectory, and hopefully get closer to a major with the Wolves, and hopefully climb up some of the NA rankings with Take Flight.
Oh yeah, man! Sounds like a bright future ahead, and I'm looking forward to getting some more Wolves stickers in the game. I'll tell you that
I
much.
hope so.
So that was all of the questions I had for you. Similar to last time when we had you on, I like to let the last part of the podcast shine a spotlight on the guests. So if there's any last words, any type of shout outs, or anything that you want to say at all, feel free to take the floor.
Well, I mean, I just want to thank you for having me on, and then also just want to thank all the Wolves guys and also all the Take Flight guys, especially for everybody just being so welcoming and kind of creating that family environment, which makes the game so enjoyable to play. So, really thankful for my current teammates and also Dell and Saban for welcoming me into the team because they're fantastic, and they're basically like the if you wanted a model or a role model of how ownership should be, they're kind of doing that right now. So I'm definitely taking kind of advice from that and seeing how they run things, and it's definitely impacting me positively. And of course, just very thankful for the Wolves guys, and we're ready to kind of see what we could do next, and hopefully kind of prove some people wrong and have a couple and really kind of climb these rankings.
And that will do it for today's episode, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and joining me for another episode. I got some stuff that I'm trying to plan up, so I want to make the end of the year go out with a bang, similar to last year, having sparkles on at the end of the year. I want to do something special, so we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, continue subscribing to the channel to stay up to date with future episodes that come out. Make sure to follow me on Twitter if you'd like as well. Yeah, we will catch you guys next Friday. You guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and we will catch you next week. Till next time, everybody. Peace.